Hello everyone and welcome back to another market review. This is Silunt. We are looking at the NASDAQ December contract for 2025. Starting off with a weekly chart. We open up the week here and produce a rally this Monday and then pulled off of the high of the day and then closed off inside of the previous week's opening price. For me, it's still sort of a toss-up whether we need to continue higher or if price is still needing to work down into some of these lower levels. Remember, we have that fair value gap here on the weekly chart that we just produced from the closure last week. I don't see anything wrong with continuing higher because we are at all-time highs. There's no reason to try and stand in front of the market like this. But if price does start rolling lower, I would be drawing quadrants and specifically a measurement on the halfway point of this previous week's wick. Because if we cannot get a move that is sustainable towards the highs and eat up through this previous week's wick, then the only other alternative would be to draw down into this wick and tag that fair value gap produced. There's nothing wrong with opening up, rallying, and trading lower on the week, tagging into this imbalance and then trading off the low. So there's nothing wrong with staying inside this predefined range here. We don't have to produce a new all-time highs this week in order to make money. On the daily chart, I want you to notice the respect of that daily wick constant encroachment. We opened and then traded lower, rebounded off the low, and then traded almost through the opening price of this daily candle here. In the previous video, I was paying attention to the small imbalance here, this daily volume imbalance. Price traded up through that and expanded largely on the range and worked into the highest candle here while taking out buy side liquidity from the previous days. I've drawn out this daily wick constant encroachment from today, and I'm wanting to pay attention to that going into tomorrow to see what price does with it. If we can open up and then rally through this daily wick constant encroachment, obviously our objectives would be the buy side liquidity up here. And if we open up and then stay below the 893 level, we'll be going back down towards the new week opening gap and then retesting this daily buy side imbalance. The higher time frames for me are conflicting with the lower time frames, so again, it's good to let Monday play out and then build a stronger foundation based on tomorrow's price action. And we have a few key levels to pay attention to going into that as kind of a guide for tomorrow. So I'll be utilizing the 893 level and the opening of the current week. On the 4-hour chart, we immediately opened up and then started rallying, and in fact closed through that 4-hour SIBI that we were watching on Friday as a key level to give us an initial bias for today's price action coming through. My expectation was to see if price could trade up through that SIBI and start working into buy side liquidity levels. We traded through that and gapped through it with a fair value gap, and then price stayed strong all throughout the night going into the New York session, we blew out these highs here and overlapped the high of that balanced price range on the 4-hour chart. And then we begin a retracement after 10 o'clock. Price begins trading lower and settles after tagging into that 4-hour SIBI. Again, this is enough of a retracement to give us an expectation of sustained bullishness if price can open here, maybe tag the SIBI one more time, or stay strong and leave this as the low and eat up through that 93 level. I would be targeting that high and see how far we can get up into these highs here from the all-time high we've just put in. On the hourly chart, you can see how Friday gave us that seek and destroy price action after giving it our reversal idea on Thursday. We drew down into that down close candle here, which is a bullish order block. Price rallies from it and consolidates, and then as we open on the week, we stair step through that 4-hour SIBI level with an unwillingness to see any retracements. So it just keeps eating up through, and going into midnight, we do a small little drop there and then rally into this balanced price range and the buy side liquidity here. Do our reversal after 10 o'clock, and then price utilizes this old new week opening gap from September 21st here as a selling opportunity to draw us back down to the 4-hour SIBI high. On the 15-minute time frame, we can see price has opened and then ate through that SIBI, used the high as a support level at 9 o'clock last night. We traded up going into midnight, consolidates and utilizes midnight opening price as a support level and rallies. Price retraces into this fair value gap here and the Wednesday new day opening gap and rallies up, and then consolidates all throughout the pre-market. Does some sloppy price action just before the open. We sweep out some liquidity from the pre-market, rally, and have a turning point here while after consolidating. Price breaks down and leaves this imbalance open and begins utilizing this as a breaker. This down close candle here gets an up close placed on top of it. Price trades lower and then has a retracement going into the afternoon. And then for the last couple hours of the day, we drop heavily into the 4-hour sell side imbalance. On the 5-minute chart, not much more that I wanted to add. Just wanted to get a closer look at the turning points today and identify the consolidations that we had. So we had that choppiness in the pre-market, drop down just before the open, and a rally, then consolidates here, finally begins to break down after this shift under this low. Put an up close candle here, bearish order block, overlapping a previous bearish order block, and inside of multiple levels from the previous price action. We use this as a propulsion candle. Price begins to spool rapidly down into the sell side liquidity here from the open, and then begins trending lower in a high resistance manner towards that 4-hour sell side imbalance, and then closes off with the low there. On the 1-minute chart, I've added just our first presentation fair value gaps for today. We can see how price left this as a breakaway gap and consolidates all throughout the opening range after our first presentation is produced. From 10 o'clock to nearly 11 o'clock, we spent a lot of time here. We have a shift in market structure below this low, and then a retracement into half of this range on the downside. Price begins to spool lower and closes below our first presentation fair value gap. We then retest it as a premium array, and this level is utilized for selling and gives us that opportunity to catch the drawdown into that 4-hour level. Same kind of idea happens here in the afternoon. After we open with our first presentation array, price begins to draw up and swipes out this buy-side liquidity here from lunch. We do a turning point and a small imbalance sells off from it, and then sells off from the one that was created here, and then retraces again and sells off from the one created here, and it's overlapping with the new week opening at from 921. We sell down through the first presentation fair value gap and then break down harshly below it, leaving an imbalance here. So this imbalance overlapping with this first presentation fair value gap produces a nice drop into our 4-hour key level. Price has a turning point off of that and then begins turning higher again through the PM session first presentation range and consolidates going into the close. So it was a quick one today. Not much that I wanted to speak about because it's Monday, and a lot of the price action happened in the overnight. A lot of consolidation around the open. So it was just one of those days where it's not the best Monday to place a lot of risk on. I'm hoping that we'll have a lot nicer and cleaner price action going into tomorrow. So that's going to be it for me today. If you found anything insightful, don't forget to leave a like and a comment, and don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you all tomorrow.